Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, we begin the countdown to episode 200. For those of you who don't know, back in January, I had up a video asking my viewers to vote for what would be episode 200. I gave them 4 options. And before we get to episode 200, I'm going to tackle the 3 that didn't win. Starting, of course, with the one that came in 4th place with 367 votes. The movie came out in 2012, and it's called VHS. Now, before I get into this, I should really tell you guys everything I know about VHS. Number 1, it came out in 2012. Number 2, it's a found footage anthology film. And if I really... and if there were 2 phrases I never thought I'd say together, they would be found footage and anthology film. For those of you who don't know, found footage movies are anything that essentially looks basically like it was shot on site and has been missing for years or whatever the hell and has been suddenly found. We're talking stuff like Blair Witch Project, Troll Hunter, Cloverfield, all that kind of stuff. And then we have anthology films, which are movies made up of smaller stories. So we're talking stuff like the Twilight Zone movie, Heavy Metal, Cat's Eye, all of that kind of stuff. So when you take a film made up of smaller stories and you take a movie made up of lost footage, I don't know if those 2 are going to blend well. I'm really curious. In fact, fuck that. There's why I made it one of the 4 options, because that sounds really fascinating. And now I'm going to find out if that concept is any good. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out VHS. Wow. They seriously are going like all out guys with this. We actually, guys, are seeing like blue screens and the, like play symbol like up top. It really does look almost like it's being played off of a VCR. I fucking love that. Alright, well, we are now in our first story, not counting the framing story. And I have to ask, because we are watching this because one of the, kids who found it, instead of putting it into one of the numerous VCRs that was in the room with him, instead of putting it in one of those to watch it and check it and see if it's the tape which they were asked to go find, he's put it in his camera. Why? I'm wondering if they were trying to justify, showing the footage without actually editing, but it really doesn't help. You put in a different tape. And plus, you're already editing from one camera to the next because the kids who were looking for the tape have 2 cameras. What the fuck was the justifiable point of putting it in the camera? I'm really kind of curious, guys. Okay, this whole scene is made incredibly creepy by the fact that we're seeing it all from a first-person perspective, and at least this story is able to kind of justify it because the guy's wearing, like, one of those, like, glasses with the camera built in. It works really well, guys, for this. It is, like... this thing, guys, is almost, like, incredibly fucking creepy. I'm actually kind of enjoying it. Okay, oh, God, will you stop showing it, dude? Apparently he fell down some steps, like, broke his wrist, the bone's jutting out. Oh, my God! There's enough to turn your fucking stomach, especially when it's like this close to you. It's like, oh my God. Oh boy, and the psycho's back. This ought to be good. Guys, where the first story had kind of sort of taken all of the, had just loaded up on creepiness and suspense and just fucking like rocked out with it. This story's kind of dragging. I'm not really digging it. My God, I really want something interesting to happen. And I'm growing incredibly impatient with this one. Okay, that twist really fucking sucked. I just want that to be known right now. The twist end on that second story was absolute horse shit. Frankly, I'm really happy it's fucking done. I'm really hoping that the 3rd story improves. Wow! That was really fucking awesome. Okay, see, now this right here is the kind of story I'm talking about. And apparently I can't film this early in the morning, because, yeah, the sun is shining right through the blind in my fucking window, and I can barely see out of this eye. Yeah, but I'm still going to press on, and that was still a really cool fucking death, man. Okay, so we have these two chatting, and they're doing like a video, like web, like chat thing. And she was able to carry that camera a long way. I didn't know webcams had cords that fucking long. Just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so now I know that it's not that she has a long cord on her webcam. She's using the built-in webcam on her laptop. And apparently now she's wandering around her apartment with her eyes closed so the ghost doesn't scare her. Does anyone have any idea how fucking stupid that sounds? You're gonna wander around your apartment, the one that you apparently just moved into. You're gonna walk around with your eyes closed, just pawing around at nothing, one-handed, so that you can carry your laptop around and you can talk to your idiot boyfriend. But you're doing it with your eyes closed because you don't want the ghost to scare you. No. That's fucking stupid. So you're telling me that these fucking retards are seeing what is very clearly some kind of horrific and possibly disgusting ritual. I don't give a shit if it's fucking, Halloween. Oh, yeah, they still haven't picked up on the fact. They still haven't picked up on the fact that this is some kind of a creepy ass ritual. Oh wait, now they have? Yeah. Little late there, fuckers. Jesus Christ. Guys, this story was attempting to be creepy, and it was just too stupid to be creepy. Frankly, I can't wait until this one's done. Well, guys, that was VHS. That was really a bizarre way to end it. Let me shut that off. By the way, just as a little note, the closing credits, at least they are meant to look like this. The closing credits look as if they were made on like one of those really old, really dumpy early 90s video editing suites almost. It really does look kind of sort of, like retro and cool. I just sort of wanted to get that out there. Wow. Before I get into reviewing it, I guess I should say that at the very start of the film at the very start of this video, before I started watching the film, I said that the two things I never thought would go well together were found footage films and anthology films, and this thing proved me wrong. This worked. Holy fuck. Okay, yes, I do have a couple of problems with it, and I will cover those, but if those issues were fixed, then this thing would be even better. But guys, this movie was actually pretty good. Alright, so, why don't we start with the, writing. Writing's always one of the big things we have to talk about when it comes to found footage films because, well, actually, no, we don't really have to talk about writing much because in many cases, and this is actually a benefit when it comes to found footage films, is I don't think that there was actually any scripting involved outside of small bits. I have a feeling almost everything was all just done in an outline, and then the actors had to essentially improv in order to get to that point, which totally works for this because everything is supposed to sound natural, and if you're forced to memorize lines, no matter how well you do it, it's not going to sound natural. It's not going to have that genuine feeling of it's happening right the fuck now. That's sort of the deal when it comes to found footage films is you want that visceral, natural feel. However, now with, writing also comes the fact that do all of these stories benefit from being done in a found footage style? And I would say yes to almost every single one of them. I say almost because one of them shouldn't even have been in here. I will cover that in just a moment. And one other one, it would probably have been as good, if not a little bit better, if it were actually made like a normal film. That one is The Closing Story, which is basically just a tape which was just left in one of the VCRs, and for whatever reason it just randomly plays. And it's essentially four guys who are going to a Halloween party, but they don't know where. So they go to this random house. I don't know why they chose that house, because they were totally lost when they got there, and they just sort of automatically assumed that was the house. And the house is completely empty, and instead of just walking out and saying, okay, so maybe that isn't it, they continue to wander, and they wander around for so fucking long, and the story goes nowhere. And then all of a sudden they hear noises upstairs, and then that there is when the honest to God spooky shit starts happening. All of the spooky and creepy shit you kind of sort of were expecting. And before that, about the only things we saw would be like ghosts in mirrors, like that, or there's like all that you'd see in that final story, until they start hearing the noises upstairs, and then shortly after that we have shit that's like that. Then we have like shit that's floating. We have arms that are like sprouting out of walls. And all that looks really good, but I also believe that damn near all of it would probably have been better if it were filmed like maybe an actual film, and perhaps maybe fleshed out a little bit more by making it feature length. Beyond those two stories, and again, I am going to cover the other one in a minute. Oh, I've got a lot to say about that one. Everything else here worked really well for found footage. Now, also, when I'm talking about writing, since this is an anthology film, one of the big things that you kind of have to focus on is the framing story, or the skeletal story. It all depends on whatever term you want to use, which is the big story, which sort of gives you a reason to watch all of the other stories. In many cases, guys, the framing story in these is usually kind of weak, with the big exceptions being movies like Heavy Metal and Tales, it was the Tales from the Dark Side movie. I know both had really good framing stories. Beyond that, guys, you have basically stuff like Creepshow, where it kind of sucks, or this right here is a little bit weak. So basically here, guys, you are really more waiting for the story itself. You are waiting for the stories themselves to hit, because you do not care about these four guys who are being asked by someone who we never see, someone who we know nothing about, wants these four guys who are just basically like small time thugs and shit. This mysterious person wants them to bust into this house and find one VHS tape, citing that they will know which fucking one it is. But there's like dozens of tapes everywhere. We only get to see 5 of them. I'm almost curious what the fuck else was in that goddamn collection. But anyway, that story, it does feel a little bit weak. It does feel a little bit sloppy, especially compared with all the other stories in the film, minus what the fuck. I'm going to talk about it right now. The second story in this film is absolute dog shit and has no reason even being here. The worst part about it, guys, is that the second story in this thing is the longest fucking one out of all of them. And that's probably counting if you were to take everything from the fucking framing story and just ran it all as one thing. That second story is the longest out of all of them, and I wish it ill. Allow me to give you a summary. Let me give you a summary on that one. All right. We have a couple. I don't know if they're newlyweds, but that's kind of sort of the feeling I'm getting. And they're on a road trip. One night, somebody randomly knocks on one of their doors, and it's a creepy woman. And the creepy woman stalks them to one of their other stops, and grabs their camera and starts filming them with it, yada, yada, yada. It's all really fucking stupid. And then it's more vacation footage with nothing special going on. By the way, also before they have the weirdo knocking on the door, it's even more vacation footage that has nothing happening, is in no way interesting, but they do happen to foreshadow the ending in a way that is just so fucking blatant it almost hurts. And then And then she's stalking them in a second stop, and then the twist hits, and if you don't see the twist coming, you're a fucking moron. But it doesn't stop the fact that the goddamn twist was stupid as shit, and I felt like I wasted a half an hour of my life watching that fucking story. And the worst part about it, guys, where every other story in the film has got some kind of like a supernatural edge to it, this has none of that. None. At all. It has no purpose being here. It sticks out like a fucking sore thumb, and it's probably the one thing that is going to stop me from ever buying a copy of this for my own personal collection. I do not want to watch the fucking second story in this thing ever the fuck again. My God, guys, if I honestly were the editor on this, I would have cut that goddamn story out in half a fucking heartbeat, and I would have sold the goddamn movie as a 90-minute film. Instead, it clocks in at almost 2 hours, and god damn it, that story. Oh, God. Guys, you have no idea. I hated that story. I hated the writing in it. I hated the structure of it. I hated the twist of it. That bad. Where it literally brings everything else down with it, which is a fucking pity, because everything else is so goddamn good. Because every other story is trying for some kind of like a supernatural spin, and in most of them it works. Now, there is one other story where things get ridiculously flimsy, and the whole thing is told through voice chats, or rather like video chats, which are being recorded off of this guy's computer as he's talking with his girlfriend. It also has a twist at the end, and that twist is also a little bit stupid, but nowhere near as fucking lame and as dopey as the twist on the end of that second story. Oh God, I guys could probably sit here for 2 hours just talking about that goddamn second fucking story. It was that stupid. But I am going to say that barring that almost half hour of absolute mindless pig shit, the rest of the film absolutely fucking shines, including the rather flimsy framing story. Even that thing comes out great when compared to that second story. Now, I know I'm banging on about that. I really got to get to everything else. Acting. Well, because this is a found footage film, you almost have to expect that nothing here was heavily scripted, so almost everything had to be done with improv. So everyone here basically has to know how to improv and how to improv well, and they do it. They do it with absolute flair. It is great. Everybody here, including in the segments that I have issues with, everybody here puts in a really good showing. The acting here is fantastic. So we do have that. Camera work. Now, you would think that if the filmmakers for this thing were, lazy, they would have basically tried to film everything with the exact same kind of camera, but they don't, which seriously helps add a little bit of extra flavor to all of this. Because in the framing story, we have our four, we have our four guys, and they're both, and they have two cameras no matter where in the hell they go. One of them's a really cheap, really old fucking school camera. The other one's a slightly more modern digital camera. And the guy who is running with the digital camera, his picture is a hell of a lot sharper and it's a hell of a lot clearer. You can totally tell that they are using two completely different cameras, and it helps immerse you more. On top of that, every single one of the shorter stories are also each done seemingly with a different kind of camera, and it all shines. It really does help add a ton of flavor, and it really does feel as if every last frame of this was just randomly found somewhere and then cobbled together to form a rather decent, experience. I greatly enjoyed it. Now, also when it comes to camera work, because all of this is found footage and it's all supposed to flow like seamlessly, they found perfect ways of making that work. If they needed multiple takes and all of that other shit. because most of these are old tapes, and old tapes had, these were like old tapes, or they were shot with old cameras, and there was this really bad habit, especially on old cameras. If you stopped filming and then you started up again, the tape actually would kind of sort of like wind forward like couple of seconds. So when you popped it into your VCR, depending on the kind of VCR you had, you would have just a screen that is either totally blue or is like static, and you see that. And you sometimes will actually see you'll sometimes see little glimpses of the footage which was being taped over, which also again kind of helps add even more fucking atmosphere to all of this. It really does enhance the film. And when they don't want to use that, they will have the camera like jitter or stutter or something like that, because guys, with almost any camera, if you are running with it, the picture honestly is bound to kind of sort of go all weird. So yeah, so you basically have that, and especially if it is a digital camera, everything actually could like freeze for maybe like 2 seconds. And then that right there is their perfect way to basically go from one take to another. Or they will use a classic thing, which is basically when someone has the camera and they're panning it really, really quick, they basically will just cut right in the middle. So you basically have to film that, like pan, that really fast pan twice, and then you just got to find the perfect spot, cut, and paste. Done. It was done really, really well, and you never notice it. You never ever notice if they actually needed a second take, and that is everything you needed for that. This thing absolutely shimmers and shines when it comes to camera work. And also the sound, because everything is coming off of these cameras, the sound also will occasionally like fuck up or jitter or what have you, and it all works out really, really well. This thing, guys, feels almost like a fucking like labor of love when it comes to just the little details. And mind you, I have noticed that I am the sort of guy who notices all of those little fucking details, and oh my god, when I honestly am able to praise it, even guys, for its minor faults, you have something good here. So I'm gonna tell you guys right now, I watched this off of Netflix. And again, barring that second story, mind you, some of you might actually get a huge kick out of the second story, which is shown in this thing. I didn't, but you guys really ought to give this thing a chance. Because no matter how much I have dumped on a couple of the stories here, everything here is most of the things here are fantastic. So I would highly recommend at least giving it a single viewing. And who knows, guys, perhaps maybe that second story will get a ton of love from you. It certainly will not from me. So yeah, guys, this one here came in 4th place. This is episode 197. We're that much closer to figuring out what episode... Well, you guys are that much closer to figuring out what episode 200 is. I already know, and I'm not looking forward to it. But hey, that guys will be found out later. So until next time, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.